Good morning, everybody. I will give everyone a moment or two. As you can see, the participants starting to climb, which is always my moment of relief to know that the technology is working and that people are getting in and getting settled. So good morning, everyone. If you want to say hello in the chat, you're more than welcome to. It's good to see everybody joining. There's Claire Kendall. I was saying yesterday on the webinar that Claire, I think, has been on every webinar that I've ever done, and I'm extremely grateful for her ongoing support and enthusiasm and positivity in the chat. So, morning, Mark. Mark's on the webinar tomorrow. Excellent. It's all going brilliant. Okay, so that means we've got people here, which is great, and we'll get cracking. So, welcome. Sorry, I'm getting a bit out of sync with my slides. Welcome everybody to Squeeze the Most Out of Your Practice Processes. I will be taking you through the session this morning, Tony Stevenson. Just before we get cracking, a few bits of kind of housekeeping and other bits and pieces to run through, and we'll cover those off, and then we'll kind of jump into the meat of the session. So thanks to those of you that joined us yesterday for our kickoff session. I kind of jumped on and did a minute or two on the beginning of that slide, but Alina took us through cost of living guidance kind of webinar and how to get the most out of that. And make sure that you're kind of well prepared for it. So if you want to kind of catch that, if you missed it, it'll be on the website before too long. And if you were signed up for the webinar, then you'll obviously get it sent out to you. So we've got this morning's session. Tomorrow I'm presenting again, Prepare Your Practice to Flourish. And then Thursday we have got the key ingredients for a healthy onboarding process with my colleague Rob Gardner and Joe Wood from Six Figure Bookkeeper. And then Friday, Jen Malik is taking us through the fruitful future of bookkeeping with an all-star panel, considering what's going to be coming, what's coming over the hill with the future of our profession. So if you would like to sign up to any of those sessions that you haven't signed up for already, you can either go to freeagent.com/boost, or if you just put your phone onto camera mode and hold it up to that QR code on the right hand side of the screen, it will take you to the page and you can sign up to the various different bits and pieces that we've got coming over the rest of the week. It would also be remiss of me to not mention our social giveaway. So we've got a post on LinkedIn, which I'm sure you'll be able to find, and I'm sure Natalie won't mind digging out the link to it at some point during the webinar and sharing it in the chat box. So essentially you can win one of 5 spa break vouchers, £100 worth of spa break vouchers, to kind of keep in line with our healthy boost theme that we have running. Yeah, you just need to go on there and comment on your sort of top takeaways from many of the sessions, and that was well engaged with yesterday, and we'll pick the winners at the end of the week. Thank you very much. There's the link to the post. Brilliant. So that is promo for the rest of the week. We'll get cracking on today's session now. So just as a sort of loose agenda, we'll do our introductions first, a bit of housekeeping, and then I'll do a quick scene set on kind of why we're interested in talking about this. It's a topic that comes around again and again, and one that people are always kind of interested in. There will be an opportunity for sort of Q&A at the end, and then what we do on these sessions is we're sort of presenting to both people who are free agent partners and people that aren't free agent partners. So if you would like to sort of see a bit of free agent, kind of hang around at the end, and I'll make it very clear where the main webinar stops and the demo bit starts. And I'll take you through sort of 10 minutes of just look and feel of free agent, and then so you'll have the opportunity to to pick up with somebody if you think it's something that's of interest to yourselves. It's a bit of housekeeping on today's session. So today's session will be recorded. I have done dozens of these webinars now, and I don't think I've ever got through one without somebody asking in the chat or in the Q&A, will I get the recording of today's session? Because we have people that join at the beginning and then something happens, client calls or whatever, and then we have people that kind of join midway through or join towards the end or don't join at all. You will get the recording of the session. It will be sent out to you in the follow-up email. So a bunch of you already got stuck into the chat, which is great. You will notice that you've got sort of 2 options. You've got chat and then you've got Q&A. So chat is, hi Claire, hi Mark, hi Linda, commentary on what's going on, but chat, great, love it. If you've got sort of a specific question that you would like somebody from from FreeAgent to answer, put it in the Q&A rather than in the chat, because the chat will continue to roll on, and the Q&A stuff kind of is pinned, so we're able to kind of go back and revisit it at the end. So what we'll do at the end is we'll go back over any Q&As that people have asked, because often they're relevant for everybody. So yeah, if you've got any specific questions, put them in the Q&A. If you've got just general chat and you want to say hello and comment on what's going on, then no kind of response is required, then feel free to use the chat. We have a polite and respectful policy on our webinars. 99% of the time it is not necessary for us to enforce this, but we do just sort of say at the beginning, we're all here to learn, we're all here to get better, we're all here to grow. So if you can just sort of keep your commentary and the chat sort of polite and respectful. We have on very rare occasions had to tell people to kind of calm down a little bit, and that's not good for everybody else's enjoyment. I liken it to if you're in the cinema, and you've got somebody shouting and screaming because they don't like the film sitting next to you, it kind of puts you off your enjoyment of the film. So yeah, just keep things polite and respectful. So we have trials and polls. So we will have 3 polls through the webinar. Predominantly we use these to make sure that we've captured everybody who wants to speak to us. So we will have one kind of right at the beginning, because we have people that join right at the beginning of the webinar and then have to drop off, and then there'll be a couple sort of later through the webinar as we move through. So you'll have plenty of opportunity to say, yeah, do you know what, I really like kind of what's been going on here, and I'm kind of interested to have a bit more of a chat with FreeAgent about these kind of things. And then there'll be a FreeAgent, so I said, a FreeAgent demo at the end, which will be about 5 or 10 minutes of me just kind of giving you a kind of overview of what FreeAgent looks like, and what you can expect from it. We are CPD accredited now, so we've been, over the course of the last about 18 months or so, we've been through a process to get all of our kind of activities CPD accredited. So all of our webinars, all the stuff hosted on the website, that's all CPD accredited. We have now our accreditation. The main bulk of our accreditation stuff is accredited, and we're accrediting the smaller modules as well. And then our kind of road shows and all that sort of stuff as well is CPD accredited. So that helps. You'll get the link to the certificate sent through in the follow-up email, and you'll just be able to say, yeah, I watched it, and then download the certificate, which is very simple to do, and will help towards your continuing professional development. So I'll launch this poll in a second, but just before, I guess it's always useful to just give a very brief recap on kind of what FreeAgent is, where we were born, who we're for, and that sort of stuff, because appreciate that we have a mixture of folk on this webinar that are some who are very well versed in FreeAgent, some who are brand new to us and have not interacted with us before. So while I run this poll, I'll just give you a little kind of this one. So yeah, if you'd like to find out a bit more, because that's why you're here, give us a shout, and then we'll be able to sort of pick that up afterwards. So FreeAgent, kind of our background. So we were born, we're about 15 years old now. So born in 2007, cloud-based bookkeeping tool. We sit in the marketplace. So people say, like, who are your competitors? I guess Excel is probably our main competitor. We sort of sit in the same space as Xero, QuickBooks, those kind of guys, but the difference between us and them is that we are very much focused on the micro entity. So we say 0 to 10 employees is kind of the FreeAgent sweet spot. Not to say that you can't use FreeAgent for firms that are slightly bigger than that. You can, but it tends to be that the complexity starts to kind of get to a point where they need a bit more reporting and a bit more analysis and that kind of stuff as they get to that sort of size. 80% of our client base sits in the 0 to 3 employee range. So that gives you some idea of kind of where we sit for bookkeeping, and you can file your VAT and self-assessment and corporate tax and payroll and other bits and pieces through the tool. It's extremely easy to use. Everything that we do is built through the lens of simplicity. And I think that the main kind of thing to remember with FreeAgent is that somewhere around almost exactly 5 years ago, we were bought by NatWest Bank, which has been a hugely positive partnership for us. And I guess the upside of that, from there's loads of really good reasons why you would want to use it. But if you have a NatWest business banking relationship, then you can have FreeAgent for free. And that's free forever, full-blown version of FreeAgent. And we quite often see people coupling that with our Metal offering. So Metal is NatWest's sort of challenger bank, digital bank, which is completely free for businesses. And again, you get FreeAgent for free. So I'll end that poll and that quick overview of FreeAgent. And then what we will do now is we'll just kind of head into a little bit of scene, a little bit of introductions, and then scene setting, and then we'll jump into the discussion. Sorry, my slides jumping all up. I've got a new mouse and it's really sensitive, and it's sort of like to take my hand off it and it moves it 3 slides. So myself, my name's Tony Stevenson. I'm sure a few of you will be familiar with me from these webinars before, but if you're not, I am the Senior Digital Enablement Manager at FreeAgent. Kind of what does that mean, I guess? So I've had three or four different jobs at FreeAgent. So I started life as a business development manager, and then I worked in the implementation team for a couple of years, and now I've kind of migrated into this role where I sort of have 3 responsibilities, broadly speaking. So this kind of stuff, talking on stages, talking on webinars, responsible for a lot of our sort of slides and outward facing thought leadership, essentially. And that's part of what I do, kind of given us a face in the market, which seems to have gone reasonably well over the last year or two. I do a bunch of kind of internal stuff in terms of supporting our wider business, and specifically the team that I sit within, which is the sales team, on advising about practices and stuff, because I'm ACA qualified. And then my final piece of what I do is sort of integrations as well. So we're building that out, and I'm part of that project. My background before that, I spent the first sort of 10 years of my career bouncing around practice and industry, trained with the Big Four, did a couple of years in industry, and then worked for a sort of a small, medium-sized firm, and then eventually managed to find a way out, as it was not my spiritual home. Went to work for Xero for a couple of years in their implementation team, and then travelled for a year, and I've been at FreeAgent almost to the day 5 years. Exactly the date I started, but I'm fairly sure it was this week. My longest ever job. So that's kind of my background. I'm going to call on our wonderful panelists today to give a little flavour of where they come from and what they do with themselves. So Linda, for no reason other than yours was the first headshot that I got sent, you're up first. So if you could just give us a little bit of background on yourself and your practice, that'd be great.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you for coming to listen to us, and thank you for having us, Tony. I'm Linda. I run LMO Bookkeeping. I'm based up in Manchester, and this summer sees the 3rd year of LMO Bookkeeping trading, which is quite exciting. And I came into bookkeeping through an ACCA route. I got to the level where I could transfer across to ICB, and now I'm with the Institute of Chartered Bookkeeping. I don't know, what's it called? Certified Bookkeepers.
Certified Bookkeepers, that's
yeah, ICB. And I love being with them. They're really supportive. And I came to FreeAgent on the back of, I had a sole trader client that was looking for a bit of support. She's local to me, and knowing her business, knowing her inside out, it was just the next step for her. And that was about 2 years ago. We've not looked back. She's still with me. She's still with FreeAgent, and my practice has grown with FreeAgent quite a lot over the last 2 years. So exciting times ahead.
Not Linda's first rodeo on webinars. I'm sure you've done at least more than one with us before. So no doubt your insights will be very well received.
Thank you.
And thank you for that. Much appreciated. And Christine, over to you.
Hi, I'm Christine Aplin, so I run Caplin Bookkeeping. I set up just over 5 years ago now. I'm based in Southampton, so sort of cover across the south coast. Changing my practice in the last couple of years. I took on my first employee just over 2 years ago, so sort of the firm's growing. FreeAgent, actually, it was quite early on. I remember picking up with FreeAgent. I think I was only been qualified for about a month. So FreeAgent is very dear to me as something, the support they've given throughout that time, not just with the software, but also just having people just to pick up the phone to, which is nice sometimes just to have when you sort of run your own business and you're sort of on your own working remotely. So and say thank you, Tony, for having me on.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I read an article by Lucy Cohen yesterday about the the loneliness of being an entrepreneur and being a business kind of founder. It was quite eye-opening and quite sad actually, but I'd very much recommend it. I really like all the stuff that Lucy puts out there. She's cracking. But yeah, that article really stuck home, and she was talking about how she kind of lost a friend over it because the friend just couldn't understand why she'd cancelled on her and then cancelled on her again because her office move was not going quite how it was. So yeah, I'm glad that you feel we have supported you both through the time we've been there, because that's kind of what we aim to do. It's why we win friendliest software provider of the year every year. Luca, always that.
Absolutely, and like Linda, I'm with the ICB, and that's the one thing, going back to the working for yourself and being lonely, it's great to have that support around you, and like for ICB are so supportive, and it's nice, you feel like you're part of a bigger family, but you're running your own business, which is
the
a great way
that
to
can
be.
often be missing, right? Yeah. We've got Amy on the panel on Friday, so yeah. she's on the panel, and she's great, and I had a good chat with her at Accountex. She's full of zest for driving it forward. Now she's kind of taken over the reins. So I'll chat for just a couple of slides, and then we'll get sort of stuck into the topics that we're going to get stuck into. So essentially, we're talking about processes today, right? And why they're important. It's a topic that we revisit, what we call an evergreen topic, which means that it sort of never goes away, and that actually it's always something that we can get new angles and new thoughts and new ideas on. And the fact that we've got over 100 people here to listen to the session today just shows that it's something that we're always looking to kind of improve. I don't know if it was Henry Ford that said this. The internet told me that it was, but this one is something that always kind of sticks with me, this quote. So if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got, right? And that I think very much applies to processes, in the sense that you can start off doing something and that feels great for one client or 5 clients or 10 clients, but actually if you hit to 100 clients, is that still going to be something that you're able to to run with? Are you still going to get the same results? Because actually you might not. So it's something that I find, I don't run a practice, but if I did, I feel like it would be something that I would spend a lot of time sleepless over at night, is how do we make this process better, and how do we make this process foolproof, and how do we make this process unbreakable, so that we're able to rely on it, and we know that we know that it's going to work and get the outcome that we want. I don't know if you've ever read the appallingly titled but extremely insightful E-Myth Revisited. It is kind of all about this sort of stuff, and about how, like, if you are the process, then you don't really have a business. You are you're beheld by the business, and you're not working on the process or the system. You're performing all the tasks, and you will eventually grind to a point where you personally can't do anymore, and then you're kind of looking at it going, now what do I do? I'm working all the hours and it's still coming up short. So processes are extremely important, and and we're gonna get into a few bits and pieces around this. And I love these type of panel discussions, because they always end up kind of throwing up new ideas, and I'm sure Linda will say something, Christine will go, oh, that could apply to me, or that I did something like that, or I've solved that problem already, and we wend our way through to usually being kind of over time. So I've done quite well. That's 20 minutes. That's about where I'd like to be in terms of timing. So we're going to jump into the panel discussion now. So the first question that we kind of want to cover is how do we audit our current processes? So setting a bit of scene on this one, and and what we want to think about. So, like, thinking of a time where you think, do you know what, actually I've looked at that and gone, right, there's an underlying task there that needs to be completed, and actually that task requires a process. Does that process exist? If it does, is it good? If it's not, how do we improve that? So I'm going to go to Linda first, because Linda was the first slide, and Christine talked more recently than Linda, so we'll bounce back and forward and those kind of things. So your thoughts on this kind of current question, Linda? How do you audit your processes? How do you make sure that things are working, and that what are the signs if they're not?
So I guess the first thing is thinking about what kind of processes you've got, and what what struggles they bring along with them. So I think the first thing that comes to me is onboarding, which is quite a massive process. And I think I've got around that at the moment because there's a lot of different steps to it. So I've kind of created a spreadsheet, obviously, with tick boxes. And as we travel through the onboarding process, we just tick them off. So they send their files and I get them to upload their documents to FreeAgent. I don't use a CRM process at the moment. So I've not got a CRM with all my clients on because I'm not big enough. And I think the cost of that outweighs the efficiencies it would give me. But as I grow, I know there's quite a few. I'm sure you've got some suggestions for me.
Now you've said that, it'll get out and you'll be
I'll be inundated by
you'll
sales.
be having sales calls from the practice management guys.
That's so good. If it's a good deal, I'm open to sales calls.
We integrate just on that. We integrate with accounting manager, and we integrate with Centre as well, which obviously is kind of being subsumed into Iris Elements. Pixie is one we're talking to, and the Engager app is one that or is it Client Engager?
Client Engager is a big one.
Is one I'm hearing a lot of noise about at the moment as well. So we've got them on our list to have a conversation with as well. So yeah, there's a bunch of them out there, and you know, and the bit you said about pricing as well, I think is something that's, you know, an interesting topic on that, which we might revisit later in the webinar. But I apologize because I interrupted you, so do
no,
continue.
it's fine. So yeah, I use the files function on FreeAgent to get them to upload everything to me, so they can take a picture on there, they can upload their private documents, so the things to do with their AML, and we both know that they're secure. It's covered by FreeAgent's security package, so we're all good with that. And I audit my AML every year, but yeah, I think that's the biggest one that jumps out when I think about processes. In the case of getting documents to me, I use Dext at the moment, because I think that's the biggest one. That's like, I guess when I'm auditing them, I'm thinking of what are the hold-ups, and the hold-ups are either getting information to me or me telling them what they owe, that kind of thing. So we've got I use Dext as an overall in my business. Everybody with me uses Dext, and they take pictures of it and it uploads into FreeAgent. And I think I chose Dext because I can use a subcontractor that I've trained on the different clients that I've got and where their invoices sit on the P&L. So it's a process that I was in charge of completely, but over the last 3-4 months I've managed to get somebody trained up to help me on that, and it's literally like an extra day a week. It's been amazing getting that system in place, and I check what they've done because I'm still in full control of their accounts on FreeAgent, and it's just been amazing getting that in place. So I guess I thought about getting Dext alongside FreeAgent just because it was something that I could outsource, because you can't, like you said, Tony, you can't be everything to everybody in your business. It's a case of getting processes in place that you can get other people to handle.
That's a very interesting kind of approach to it. So there's a subtle, like at inception, there's a subtle difference between here's a process that works and here's a process that works, but I've also built it so that I know that I can divest it to somebody else sooner rather than later, so that I've given consideration to, well, actually, you know, even if it's like, well, these are the bits that I definitely need to do because there's some sensitivity or security issue around it having to be me, but those bits are probably quite minimal, and then here's the rest of it that I've kind of built so that I can outsource it to somebody else. And that is that's a really interesting kind of mindset difference between just building a process or building a process that allows your business to scale, because I always think, you know, if you extrapolate that process across, you know, 20 staff and 500 clients, does it still work? If it still works, absolutely, then you're in a good place, because, you know, you can look to move that stuff on, and then you can focus on, you know, in the longer term, what you kind of may want to do as a business owner, which is maybe not that sort of stuff, maybe more winning clients and, you know, growth plans and all that kind of stuff. So that's a really interesting distinction, is to to think about, okay, so we start with a task. What are the kind of bits of that task that needs to get completed? Are there actually any bits that are unnecessary and we could do away with, or we could get a bit of tech to use? And then we look at the holdups along that process, and then we can start to try and iron those out, and perhaps iron them out in a way that we can get somebody else that's more suited to that role. I like that a lot. Christine, your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, I mean, I guess probably shouldn't be admitting this publicly, but for the first couple of years of practice, I didn't really have processes in place. I kind of had lists everywhere, I had reminders everywhere, but it was just me. So I kind of didn't really have a set process of this is how you do something. This is because I just was doing it all, and it was that. So it was only really when I took on Karen to work with me a couple of years ago that I kind of thought I've got to have some sensible processes in place, because she needs to know what she's doing. I need to know what I'm giving her and what to do. So that's where I sort of started. So I kind of started really when I put them in place, and some of it's still ongoing as we sort of putting in things in place, like Linda said, with sort of onboarding, with VAT, with payroll, with self-assessment. So having a process in place. But then the way I've sort of, I guess it's evolved, and like auditing it and sort of reviewing it as we go along, is take on new clients and they may not fit into the same box as an existing client. For example, they may have something bespoke, or they may do something slightly different. So it's about, I've sort of got those processes, but all the time it's being conscious of, well, actually, does that fit for that new client, or does that fit for that client because actually they've changed for whatever reason? Maybe they've become VAT registered. So actually it's trying to work out what processes then apply to them and making sure that process fits for them. So I get some clients who, I'm sure we all have some ones who are tech savvy and love accounting software and love Excel and things like that, and some who just aren't, and they just don't want to have that side of things. So it's, the processes are there and I guess they work, but it's adapting them as they need to be for each client.
I think that I did some, not the full-blown study on it, but some reading on kind of like principles, like project management stuff, and how to affect change using their kind of methodology. And it was, I'm sure there's people on here who've done the qualification be screaming at me for talking about it in such a reductive fashion, but essentially it was kind of like, you need a sponsor, you need somebody who owns the business or is senior in the business, you need someone to drive it forward, you need a plan, you need to understand the problem, and then the last one was, and then you need to tailor all of that for your specific requirements. And my belief is that you can, if you approach it in the right way, you can systemize even things that seem bespoke or seem chaotic. Usually what you can do is kind of go, right, okay, so it's not all chaos, it's just that little bit that's varied for each client. So we kind of pull that bit out and ignore that bit. We'll systemize all the rest. They need VAT, they need self-assessment, they need, their COSEC filings done, all that kind of stuff, which we know is kind of fairly systemized. They need to be onboarded in some fashion. How that onboarding looks might be different from each one, but we have to consider the overall AML bit, and then we have to consider the overall training bit, and we maybe flex within that, but we've got a bit for training, and then we understand, each one might be slightly different, but it still fits within the overall realms of our flexibility of our system. Because what happens is, if you don't build that flexibility in, is that when you get that person who is outside of it, instead of you kind of going, well, my system flexes to accommodate them, even though we're doing something slightly different, we're still doing it within the system of, we considered this and this fits in. Then you start getting people going rogue and going, well, that didn't fit, so I just had to get it done. And now we've agreed with something that doesn't scale, but they're happy with it. Now we've got to go back and reinvent the wheel. So I think that that approach of we need a system. What you described, Christine, is incredibly common. Of like, well, I started off, I thought I was going to have loads of sort of time to build all of this stuff. I won a client who referred me to 6 more clients. Then I bought a small client block, and suddenly I had 30 clients, no time, no systems, and I needed to hire someone. And now I've got to kind of retro engineer it, which is essentially the story of every founder in every business. we always like have these dreams of people that like us that aren't founders that maybe want to be one day, when you're kind of like, I know what I do. I just build out all these systems, and then like, it'll be great and it'll all purr, and like, I won't have to deal with any problems because there won't be any, because the systems will be so good. And then actually the reality of that is so far from there, and eventually you will end up in that situation where you're like, I wish I'd done this sooner, but actually now I have to do it because I hired Karen. Karen needs to understand how the system works, right? I think I was kind of look back at one particular example that I've talked about on these webinars before, so apologies to anyone who's heard this example, but it was a firm I worked with in my implementation time. It was actually at Xero, and they had got it was a really good example of process mapping. So they had the task was data collection. So what was happening was they were implementing change, and they wanted to bring everyone onto digital platform. And what they were finding was that they would come to sort of like review time expecting like these clients to be moved on to, a new digital platform, and actually they were still on Sage. And they were having this conversation again and again. It was like, why aren't they on there? And it turned out that what was happening was the client sort of data collection sat with the client manager. So the client manager, who didn't really want to change, was basically just kind of going out, kind of saying, can I have your information, please? And they'd send it to them in a Sage file, and then it just get uploaded, the work would start. And then it would be like, oh, I'd rather just kind of like carry on doing what I'm doing and wait till I get really told off for this. And they were all doing it. So the data collection, and this was the point, was like, well, actually, we realized that it's not really a great use of like, highly qualified accountant or bookkeeping person's time to go and collect data. Actually, what we could do is get one person to do this, and they've taken it off them. They then don't have to worry about it. And also we've changed the point of decision around what software they're going on next year to somebody else who is on the bus with this rather than somebody who isn't. So we ended up mapping out this whole process of like, well, how does this all work? And then we realized where the point was of failure, which was when the client manager, who didn't really want to change, was going out and asking for the data. And it might even been that actually it wasn't so much resistance. It was more, they've sent it to me in this format. I don't really feel equipped to go and have this conversation. It's quite a big conversation. So you've been using this system for 20 years. We now want you to change and use another system, which I'm not actually that comfortable with in comparison to the old system. So I'm not feeling like I can answer your questions. And I've got loads of stuff to do. I just don't have time to go through, a big migration of data from one system to another, and all the conversations around price and all that sort of stuff. So it was much easier for that to then be dealt with by the firm owner in conjunction with somebody else who they'd sort of repurposed out the admin team to take this on. And lo and behold, I didn't solve the problem overnight, but it certainly helped to move the problem in the right way. And I thought it was a really good example of like auditing a process and kind of going, well, actually we didn't really have a process for that. It was just something that happened, and actually it was win-win when we kind of got it all sorted. So excellent.
And the other thing that I've just started doing as part of, sorry, just come back to that, is involving Karen in those discussions, because she's been with me 2 years now. And so it's kind of, does it actually work? Does this work for you as well? Is that the best way? If it's two heads then looking at something, rather than it just being me and looking at it and what I think, it's her involvement as well, which.
And then the further evolution of that is Karen coming to you and saying, Christine, I want to improve this process. How do you feel about it? And then that is then taking care of itself, right? And I think it's amazing when you have those conversations with people, involve them rather than just kind of pushing it onto them. Like, they're so much more engaged and so much more on board with, we've got to make this change, but A, I've been asked, B, I've been consulted. Like, how many times we've worked in businesses around, like when we were employees and colleagues who were just like, I just don't understand why we do it this way. There's no there's no sense they want to do it like that. And it's like, even if you're involved in the conversation, we have this phrase at FreeAgent that we use, which is disagree and commit. So it might be that myself and a colleague in another team want to do the same thing, but we want to do it in different ways, or we want to do something different with a budget or something, and we'll have a conversation around it, and we'll get to a point where we'll decide, what, this makes most sense from a commercial perspective, or this makes most sense from a process perspective, and it might not be that it was what I wanted to do, but that shouldn't really matter, right? Everything should be in the interest of of our business ultimately, and the goals that we've set as a collective. And and ultimately where problems come is where you don't have those honest conversations, and I go away going, I don't think that was a very good idea. That's stupid. I'm just gonna make life difficult. Whereas actually, if you go, do you know what? I didn't agree with that. That's not the way I want to do it. We've come to a collective decision that this is the best in the best interest of the company, which should be the outcome we all want. I'm happy to disagree with you and commit on it, and I'll give you my, and then ultimately if it goes wrong, it's somebody else's fault anyway. So, so it's win-win, right? So yeah, I think that's that involving people and your staff and your team and your subcontractors in those conversations is key and really helps to kind of get everyone pulling in the same direction, which can be a challenge in this area. So we've talked about auditing, which is great. So choosing the right technology to underpin those processes. How important is the tech stack? So we'll come to the tech stack kind of afterwards because it's a bit of an ethereal kind of concept that I kind of get what people mean by it, but not everyone does, and not everyone likes it. It's a bit like advisory, but technology. Christine, your thoughts on like kind of how you build that into the process conversation and how it works for you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I learned with technology is about, there's obviously a lot of technology out there, and there's a lot of bookkeepers out there using a variety of technology, and it's very much about finding what technology works for you. It's very easy to see people using, one particular technology or a series of technologies and kind of think, oh, that's what I need to do. But actually, it's what works for you and what works for your clients. So, most of the technology out there, you can get free trials on, you can get free demos on. So especially if you're sort of quite early on in your practice, go and do those, do as many as you can, in my opinion, because actually then you've got that experience and the knowledge to go, actually, that's the right technology for me, or even that's the right technology for me for what I need at the moment. But actually, maybe you start off that actually something works, but actually later on, because of taking on different clients or something, you need something else. But you've got that experience, you've got the knowledge of what's out there to actually then know what is right for you. And say that may change. So definitely go out and do as many trials and talk to other bookkeepers. If you've got other bookkeepers out there local to you, talk to other bookkeepers and find not just what they use, but why they use it and what they find good about it, and what they find bad about it as well. That's always a good thing. It's the technology changes as well, as we all know. Obviously everything adapts, and technology changes. So what was something that may have been good 3-4 years ago may not be as good now, or the other way around, something that maybe wasn't as good or wasn't maybe keeping up a couple of years ago may be better now. So just being aware of what's out there, and things like Accountex and things like that are great for going out there and meeting the providers, and being able to talk to them and being able to go through things. So yeah, that's a big thing for me, is say do what's right for you, and if possible get things in place. When you've got them in place, you start using them, you start to build. So one of the things I found is I use TaxFiler for some of my filing year-end accounts and self-assessments who aren't on software at the moment, and I've then got that record. So where I've done them year on year, you go in and it's so easy now, because I go there and I've got all the client details in there, I've got their previous return in there, and as you go through, it kind of gets easier when you use software. At the start, it may be putting a lot of time and data in, to sort of set up that process and set up that system, but actually as you go on, you'll find it really does save you time.
Totally agree. Linda, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think with technology that I've been choosing, I've been on a lot of webinars. I love Jo Wood. She has some amazing ideas for technology. She's very experienced, and I think because I hold her in such high regard, I do listen to a lot of what she says, and she has a lot of tech partners, so that really helps. And I think just hearing what they can do before you take the leap, it's amazing. And I've also got a coaching group, which is all accountants and bookkeepers. So there's 6 of us, and we go through the different processes that we've got within our practices, and we all talk about what tech we use, and each person has their own different way. And like you said, Christine, it's about finding what works for you, 100%. So I think at the moment I've got a scope for more tech within my business, but when I grow, do you know what I mean? Like what I've got works at the moment. I use quite a lot of spreadsheets and Excel, or Google Sheets, depending on what the client uses, which is great. It works.
I think that, so from my angle, I think the best advice that I can give people when choosing technology is, so I'm going to pull on some of the points you've just mentioned there, and then I'm going to add a couple. So I think the getting to know what you're buying and being an informed buyer is like 80% of the battle. Don't go into those sales conversations like where you're kind of like, oh, you know, you're going to sign for this or not, without having gone and done your research and spoken to some peers. My wife and I, whenever we're traveling, we always have this rule of go and ask 3 people if you're going to buy something like a, you know, trip or a, you know, excursion or something. Go and speak to 3 different people, and you should get at least one of them that's truthful, next to the right, near the right price, and like, you know, that's got the right information, and you know, and it applies to lots of different walks of life. You know, like if you go and speak to 3 people, you'll feel so much more informed than you did if you've just spoken to one, or if you've spoken to none, because you might be lucky and get someone who's great, but you might not. And I think that another piece of advice I would give is always make sure you ask to see the software kind of working. I've heard stories of like people being sold dreams based on screenshots, and then, you know, they find out, they sign up, and actually it doesn't have the feature that they said that it had, and it's coming soon. And you know, a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. I definitely think that sort of being an informed buyer is super useful, because it stops you kind of signing up for things that might not be quite suitable for what you're looking for. When choosing technology, I always think that the bad way to do it is, oh, that's cool, that's new shiny thing, like that sounds great. I really liked the salesperson, or I really liked the t-shirt they gave me, or the water bottle, or the whatever it might be. But what I didn't think through was like, okay, so what is either the problem this is solving, or the opportunity that this allows me to kind of go after? You know, that technology needs to enable something that you understand quite well in terms of a process, or like I said, an opportunity, or, you know, a new bit of business that you want to go and undertake, or whatever it might be. And I think that quite often, if you miss that, you'll end up in a situation where you've got 40 bits of software, and you suddenly realize you're spending out an awful lot of money, and you're not really using any of it properly, because you can't realistically implement 40 bits of software really well. That'll take you years. And then you end up with what I call a tech splat, not a tech stack, which is just a ton of software that seemed like a great idea when I signed up for it, and I got 2 or 3 clients on it and never really kind of did anything with it. And now I'm kind of getting hassled to add more clients to it. And actually, you know, you're far better off kind of having a smaller number of better implemented, better understood pieces of technology that are underpinned by a problem that you had, or an opportunity that you wanted to go after, rather than just kind of being like, oh, well, I want to be part of that club, so I'm gonna you know, sign up to that. And, you know, and actually I hadn't really given it much thought as to where it was going to end. I'm conscious of the fact that it is 11:45 and we're only on question 2, so we'll skip over the tech stack bit. But essentially, a tech stack is just how does it all talk to each other, which we kind of know is important, right, to some extent. You know, and those things will, like you used the example earlier, Linda, of Dext. You know, Dext talks to FreeAgent, that's super helpful. We also did make some improvements to Dext recently, or Dext made some improvements to Dext recently, so that's helped tremendously. So multi-category bills is now functional, and tax rates are aligned, and there's some more stuff coming as well. So we're working quite closely with them now. So the implementation process for changes, we sort of touched on this a little bit, but I'm keen to delve into it a little bit more. If there's any kind of thoughts, feelings you've got on it, I'll start with you, Linda, because I think we started with Christine last time. So yes.
So I think with any change within my practice, I start with the practice first, and then I'd roll out to clients. I think with the case of any changes, because at the moment it's mainly me, but I do have 2 subcontractors, so I do want to keep them on board with what's happening. Yeah. And our communication, I think, has got to be the key. So we're thinking about why the changes are happening, and what it will help us to solve. So that's the two things that I think I'd try and communicate with them. We might have a quick meeting about it, which could be over coffee. We could just meet up for coffee and a catch up, that kind of thing. And then anything that's secure with our thinking, I'd confirm in an email just to give them that chance to process it and make sure that everything sits well with them. And it gives them a chance then to formulate a yes or a no answer, which they've had time to think about and make sure they're happy with it. And I think I'd do the same then once my practice is happy and I'm happy with where my subcontractors are at. I'd then approach clients. So if it was something like rolling out a software change, I'd be talking to them in person. I'd either arrange a Zoom or a catch-up meeting, which I try and do quarterly anyway with all clients, just to make sure that anything that's coming up or any bumps in the road are foreseen as much as we can. And then I'd again communicate it verbally first, try and chat through things. We'd then put everything in writing and get them to agree to it in writing, because then I've always got that paper trail. I love a paper trail.
I like that.
It's like, well, you did say you
Good
were up
to do
for this,
this.
so this is what we're doing. And, you know, deadline, I think, is also a good thing. So if we say, oh, this is something we want to do sometime in the future, it's like, well, yeah, but when? Because at the moment it's a bit of an issue and we want to have a bit of hope towards when things would get better. That's always the goal with any changes, isn't it, to make things better? So putting a deadline in place for anything like that would be awesome in writing as well, I think, by email.
It's excellent. Christine?
I think I'd also roll it out
Okay,
slowly. So I'd
Yes.
choose one client that would be more susceptible to the change. They'd be happier for it to happen. And I think I'd get them on board first.
Yeah.
So then it'd be a slower rollout. So I'm kind of learning from their mistakes, and the ones that aren't too, there's always a bit of trial and error when you implement any change, in my experience anyway. And
Yeah.
it's learning from that and being open with the client about what's happened and making sure that you don't let that happen again. But there's certain clients I wouldn't want to make those changes with, and certain clients that would be more open to it because they're less hands-on with their accounts, kind of thing. So yeah, it's about choosing the right ones to implement the changes with first, and then deciding that you're going to roll it out to everybody.
You'd be amazed how many times I've had this conversation, and that point is usually people say the opposite. So they say, I want to choose the hardest client, and then on the basis that if I can get it through with the hardest client, then the rest will be really easy, which I couldn't disagree with more. Your approach is exactly what I suggest, which is choose an easy, friendly one that, you know, maybe you give them a bit of a discount and say, look, you know, I'm going to be learning a bit from you, so, you know, this is new, and, you know, I'll give you 50% off for the first month or two, just to kind of help smooth it over. And if you wouldn't mind, you know, just giving me a bit more of an active feedback on this than we otherwise would, and if it's rubbish, we can can it, and if it's not, then we'll run with it. But, you know, there will be a bit of learning on there. That is definitely the approach that I would take. But the amount of times I've had that, oh no, yeah, I went and chose my hardest client.
Wow.
There's one guy, oh god, time when I was at Xero, and he'd never moved a software from Sage onto Xero before, and he wanted to do it manually. So he chose he didn't choose, he was sort of forced into this, but it ended up being his biggest client, which was 4 businesses, 2 years, very transaction heavy, multi-currency.
Wow.
And he insisted on doing the migration manually, even though there was a option that you could do for free where somebody else would do it, and it all went horribly wrong, needless to say. He refused to take my advice, and it all descended into a pretty unpleasant project where a lot of time was wasted on you know, something that was just unnecessary, just kind of like not taking that approach in the first place. You would have perhaps had a bit more of a platform to go from. So I totally agree with that. Choose an easy client first, and, you know, practice on them. Christine, your thoughts?
Similar to Linda, to be honest. Communication's the big one, both with, you know, within the practice, you know, first of all, getting everyone's buy-in, so everyone knows what's expected of them, everyone knows what their role is in that, and how that may change, you know, their daily work or whatever. They, you know, need to know that, and be clear on that from the start. With clients, again, the slow process of doing it one at a time, not not doing it everyone at one time. And I guess a good example of this is I'm looking at the moment of trying to get those, sole traders who are still on spreadsheets onto software ready for Making Tax Digital. Obviously the deadline keeps being pushed back, but it's one of those things that I've promised myself over the last 6 months that I really I want to get on with it now. I want to, because I keep, when the deadline changes, it's kind of, well, I'll just wait that for now. I've got plenty of other work to be doing for now, so I'll just put that to one side. But actually now I'm at that time where actually I want everyone on software, because actually it makes life easier for me and my team. So actually it's a good time to do that. So this is a good thing of, in the past, obviously people are starting now, we're in June, come to me for obviously the last tax year's self-assessment. So that I'm kind of seeing as an ideal time to be having that first conversation when they come to me to say, right, here's my paper, or what do you remind me what you need from me. It's have that conversation early on of planting those seeds of this is where we're looking to go. And yes, that won't be a sudden put everyone onto software next month or anything like that, but by starting that change, by starting it gradually with the different people, we'll get to the end goal. And I'm trying to, with the help of the software providers, trying to always set myself sort of goals within that to so I've got accountability to get it done and not leave it to the last minute.
It's surprising actually, because I think from our perspective, obviously we had been working at times, there was sort of 80-90% of our development team are working on something to do with Making Tax Digital or landlords at FreeAgent. We found out when everybody else did that it was delayed, and it was pretty upsetting for a lot of us here, because we'd kind of bought into the whole process and we didn't get any warning. 2 weeks before, I've been standing at roadshows telling everyone there's no way it's going to get delayed, and then it gets delayed, and you look silly, right? But that's a minor point when you consider all the hard work and efforts and all that kind of stuff that's gone into it. And we know it's coming down the pike. It's not gone away. It looks slightly less toothy than it did given the limit changes as well. But it's been quite surprising actually how many firms have gone, do you know what? Like, I'm just going to kind of carry on. Like, actually, this was a good reason in terms of a stick, but actually there's so much carrot for getting firms onto the software anyway, and we kind of know it's coming. So actually, given we'd already started, rather than putting it down and then having to kind of remind ourselves and all the pickup again later, we just changed the conversation slightly, which is, this is good for you, it's good for us, but EEL's also going to be mandatory at some point. So we'd far rather kind of get you on now and give you plenty of time to kind of get used to this new world. Like, this isn't like this is a task that needs to be done. This is a a new way of working that is is going to be a bit of a change for you. And actually, you'll always end up with some portion of clients that just flatly refuse or don't want to do it, and and then ultimately you've got to make choices around, do I divest them, do I take the work on for them, but I'm going to have to charge them 5 times as much as I was previously? Are they better with somebody else because there's a specialist in that area, and actually they're not when I took them on, they looked like a good client, but my business has evolved, and actually now I need better margin clients that suit where I'm heading with my business. That's not an uncommon conversation. I remember doing a presentation with one of the NatWest guys down in it was actually in your area, Christine, just down the road, at was it more Brighton, Chichester? It was on the south coast somewhere anyway. It was in a yacht boating club, and there was a guy there sort of sat there looking pretty annoyed throughout the whole thing, and he came up to me at the end, and he was like, I'd explained Making Tax Digital for VAT and how that was going to look, and he basically was like, he's like, I'm going to shut my business if I have to do this. And it wasn't like I'm going to have to shut my business because I just won't. It was like, I'm shutting it. This is not fair. I shouldn't have to do this. I've got my system. I spend 2 days a quarter, I think it was, or 2 days a month, where I lay out all my receipts on the table and I work it all out, and I write out my cash book, and then I put it into a spreadsheet and I send it to my accountant, and he hasn't mentioned this to me, and I'm fuming about it, and this is how I picked it up. And I was like, and he, like, his son was with him, and his son was like, Dad, I could do this. But like it doesn't look easy, but it's not easy, but it's fairly straightforward. It's the same thing you're already doing. It's just kind of half done for you, but in a system. It's like, I can do this. You don't need to shut your business because of a VAT burden. And I think he sort of talked to me. He owned a pub, and he was an old school fella, And I was absolutely adamant that, you know, he was going to shut his business because of NTD for VAT. So I hope his son talked him out of it, and that he maybe found an accountant who was better equipped to help him with the digital side of things, because I don't think his accountant had raised it with him, and we were fairly close to when it needed to be implemented. But yeah, I think that's kind of not where we want to be, but you will inevitably get some clients that are more difficult than others, and actually you kind of want to be dealing with those with a bank of knowledge and information that you've already got from having gone through these processes with others first, and also not having the stress of like, well, I've got these 20, 10 to 5, 15 clients that need extra special attention and hand holding, but I've still got all of these other clients I need to do as well, which actually I could have done those over the last couple of years, and that would have been almost like business as usual. Like tax return comes around, have the conversation, put them on the right bit of software. You know, if that's FreeAgent, great. If it's not, you know, no problems there. You know, and make sure that we've taken the time and we've got the bandwidth to be able to kind of help them, support them, you know, lean on FreeAgent to do that. So yeah, comms definitely key, getting people on the bus to, you know, to do that, and taking your time and learning from each iteration of implementation is all very good advice. The final questions we are, well, yeah, let's rattle through this one quickly. So Christine, how do we best lean on our software providers to get the most out of them?
Training, not you know, and training when new features come out. Training when just use the, you know, there's training there, CPD like this, you know, use training providers are out there, and there's a lot of experience and, you know, knowledge out there. Use that. Definitely. The other thing is using actually the software to help with your processes. You know, like on FreeAgent, have alerts set up when you're getting close to VAT returns being due, just as that extra step, just as that extra reminder. Just use this, you know, the software, again, it has these things built in that are there to help. Find out what those are and use them, so that you've got that, say, just as part of the process, you know, because things slip, you know, slip under the net. It's easy for something like that. So just have that as a reminder. Just so you've got that. That's the biggest things for me. But yeah, definitely training. You use the training from the providers. It's yeah, it's there. It's free. It's, you use it.
Yeah, it is. We use often people don't realize this, but you can book your clients in with one of our support team for like a 20-minute, half an hour slot, and there's always slots available. And I'm like, I can't believe that. I thought somebody should be really stressed out and like, you know, and hammered all the time for these kind of things, because it's sort of not hidden, but like, you know, it's not front and center of the website, but you can do that, and there's no charge for that. You know, it just takes half an hour off your clock, right? And then you've got somebody else to deliver that. Linda, your rapid fire thoughts on this question?
I think it's just mirroring what Christine said. It's making sure that you've got the right training in place for you and everybody that's going to use the software with you. And then also using your account managers. So I love my account managers at FreeAgent, and I think they're probably the most friendly ones that I've got. I've mentioned that I also use Dex. I do have an email address for them for any specific issues. I use the help function quite a lot, just in case there's anything just quick that I should have picked up on that I've maybe not before I get in touch with my account managers. But yeah, just not being scared to ask for help, I think, because you're new to it and you're learning, and they're the experts, so don't struggle away with it. Ask the experts.
Yeah, I think all good advice. I think the partnership element sometimes gets forgotten and isn't necessarily always the underlying want from the software side. You know, is you want a partnership versus a transactional sale. You know, we very much try and stay away from that. FreeAgent's an ongoing partnership. We'd rather that we helped you grow and, you know, helped you to not fall over when you hit a barrier, and you know, and just lean on us. There's always sort of stuff we can do and stuff we can help with. So yeah, excellent. I think we might skip over this one because we're sort of at time now, and I appreciate I don't want to keep people any more than is necessary, and as often happens with my webinars, we end up yakking on for longer than we should do, and we reach over time. So we're going to skip over that one. I'm just going to have a quick squiz over the Q&As just to see what's gone on. Idle text stack, I want to make the business process easier. Anonymous attendee, I'm afraid that's probably too much of a broad conversation for the time we've got left. So if you do want to pick that up, tech stack and that kind of conversation, just going to get in touch, and we'll be able to give you some advice on how to push that forward. Please could you share your tech education process on your day-to-day work? How do you decide what and how you learn new software, so it may be useful for you and your client? Hopefully we've kind of covered that one, Natalie, which is kind of around, you know, like how do you implement, essentially, how do you train them, you know, how does tech education kind of work? So if you've got any questions that you would like to pose, then just kind of sling them in the chat now. A few people saying I've got to leave. I'll go for 12, no problem. That's nice from Claire Kendall. They're really in-depth reviews from users on the ICB website. Tony, your sound is quite low. Maybe I need to be a bit closer to the microphone. I wish I had documented my processes early on, all in my head. Thanks very much. Got to leave. Thank you. Cool. Okay. Wicked. I think as we've come to time, we've covered the questions off. I think we will just before people disappear. Sorry, that's done again. So if you would like more information about digitizing your practice in a client base, I shall run the poll now. There we go. Launch. So if you want, you know, someone to get in touch, you want a bit more information about that, then you're more than welcome to. What will happen next? My slides are going all over the place. So that's the poll. Yeah, if you want to say yes, then you're more than welcome to. That would be great. Someone will get in touch with you. And then what we'll be doing next is a short sort of 10-minute FreeAgent demo. So if you've already comfortable using FreeAgent regularly, then you probably don't need to stick around for it. Panelists, thank you very much for your contribution today. It's been really enjoyable. I always love kind of yarning on about this type of stuff, and I'm sure that given that the majority of our participants have stayed on for the majority of the webinar, that everyone's got loads from it. I will do my thank yous now, and then we'll jump into the demo. So again, thank you to our panelists. Thank you to Natalie and those on the chat box who've been answering the questions and doing all that kind of stuff as we've gone along. Thank you to the girls in the comms team who put a huge amount of effort into getting these things up and running. Georgia always keeps me right, and Marianne is the Queen of Bookkeepers, who's put on this week for us, and you know, has done a phenomenal job for the last 2 years on this year as well, of, you know, putting a really good schedule of learning together. So thanks to everybody, all the design team and everyone that reviews my slides and does all the images and all that kind of stuff. It gives us some great assets to work with. But mostly, I guess, thank you to everyone who's given up their time to kind of come and listen to us today. We really appreciate your participation and your input and all that kind of stuff. So brilliant. Thanks ever so much. I will end that poll. Panelists, class dismissed. If you want to stick around, you're welcome to, but you can more than happy to drop off now, because I don't think you'll get huge amounts from this, given you're both FreeAgent active FreeAgent users on a day-to-day basis. As I said, if you want to sign up for any of the other ones, you quick scan of the QR code there, and that'll take you through to the rest of the sessions. Natalie, if you could share the LinkedIn post again, that'd be super useful in the chat, just in case someone's dropping off. Anyone missed that, pop your key takeaways in, you got a chance to win the spa break vouchers. And I'm sure there's no reason why Christine and Linda, you can't enter as well if you want to. So.
I'm hoping so.
I don't know if you keep commenting whether it kind of gives you more chances to win. I'm not sure how they pick it, but cool. So we're gonna jump into the demo now. I'm gonna unshare my screen, and then let's just stop sharing there.
I'm going to leave. Thank you, Tony.
You are more than welcome.
Thanks,
Thanks so
Tony.
much again.
Enjoy the rest of the week. Bye.
Yes. go. So hopefully you can all see my screen now. I'll just give you a quick overview. So this is FreeAgent's practice dashboard. So you see the green stripe across the top. That means that we're in the area of FreeAgent where you can kind of manage your clients. Those of you that have been following us closely, you'll notice that we've started to change the colours recently and the sort of look and feel of it. So we've had a rebrand, and that's part of that. So this just gives you an insight. This just gives you kind of your list of your clients, tells you whether it's a free NatWest one or not, which is kind of pretty useful. And as Linda mentioned earlier, I think it was, or possibly Christine, we've got the opportunity here to set up our alerts, which help us to kind of manage what's going on, directors' loan accounts, VAT accounts, all that kind of stuff. Got our account managers here. So if we got a senior account manager, they can see and do everything. Junior account manager can just sort of see the stuff that's applicable to them. Let's just move this out of the way. Just jump into a client. We'll just have a quick look through one of the clients and then jump off. So you get these little overview kind of insights on the overview screen here that will tell you different things that need doing and different things that need to be sorted. So if I click into it, then it will show me some of the other stuff, that deadlines and all that kind of thing. The overview screen. So you'll notice you've got the kind of different widgets. You can drag these and drop them, move them around if you want to. Got the banking, shows your overall kind of bank balance. I really like the tax timeline. It's one of my personal favorites, which is gives you an overview of all of your kind of tax deadlines that are coming up. There's some work done on this year to kind of improve this and allow you to interact with it a bit more around payments that have happened, that kind of stuff. But yeah, if you're a limited company, which we are here, it's got all your corporation tax deadlines and income tax deadlines for directors and all that kind of stuff. Various different tabs along the top here. P&L, top is your current year, and then bottom is the retained profit. Let's jump straight into banking, I think, because banking is kind of the heartbeat of FreeAgent. So I'm going to jump into here. There we go. So this is where we connect up our bank feed. So you'll be able to see here, if I go to enable bank feed, it will give us all the different kind of options that we're able to look at here. And so there's 29 different banks that we integrate with in various different forms, not just the NatWest ones. We also integrate with Starling, Revolut, and Monzo, although a bit on a slightly different basis. Let me show you how some of the stuff works in the. You can connect up your bank account and it pulls your transactions through. So something I want to talk about just for a few minutes in FreeAgent is guess. So we have an algorithm programmed into FreeAgent that does a couple of things, and it helps to automatically categorize your transactions for you. So the first thing that Guess does is Guess allows you to kind of be programmed basically based on your prior behavior. So for example, if transaction Cool Beans Coffee comes in and you put it to a combination of meals and then again to a combination of meals and then again to a combination of meals, FreeAgent goes, that's what you do with that transaction, so let's do that automatically for you, so then you don't have to kind of keep doing that. We also have another part of the algorithm which is based on the user experience or the user behavior of all of our users. So we sort of took all the transactional data that had ever happened in FreeAgent, and then we we kind of summed it up and looked for common behaviors. So for example, network rail, greater than 95% of the time people put network rail to travel, so that was a high enough bar, so we started doing that automatically for you. And the amount of transactions that has that deals with has gone up hugely in the time that since we implemented it. So it started off at about 10-11% and it's now up to sort of 45-50% of transactions that it will automatically categorize for you, and then you can they'll sit under the for approval tab, and then you can automatically approve them, or you can just leave them there and they'll automatically kind of find their way into the nominal codes. We also have something called auto extract, which is really cool. Let's just see if I can find one that's auto extracted. So auto extract here is a we've taken a photo of this receipt, and you'll notice it's got the amount here. It's automatically pulled that amount out. That then filters into kind of expenses, and filters into bank transactions, and at some point in the future will filter into to bills, and and allow you to kind of not have to enter those transactions and process all that kind of stuff on a basic level. So we're really proud of that. It's a really cool little feature, works in the mobile app. Excellent. Okay, that's just a little quick kind of 10-minute sort of overview of FreeAgent, just a little bit of look and feel. And as I said, if you're keen to get involved with using FreeAgent, then you got your final chance here to just pop in a yes or a no. That's fine, and somebody will get in touch with you. We typically partner with accountancy firms of all sizes. The bread and butter, the vast majority that we partner with are probably on the smaller end of the practices. And as I said, we have the solution for your smaller micro entities. So I'll just give everyone a few more minutes to just indicate if they're interested in somebody having a chat with us, and then we'll close down the webinar. Yeah, it's no obligation, folks. If you think, oh, you know what, actually I would like to talk something in a bit more detail, find out about onboarding and that kind of stuff, then you're more than welcome to. Cool. Okay, it's stop moving. So final chance there, and then we'll end the poll there. Brilliant. Thanks again, folks. Thanks again for your participation, and excellent. Thanks, Graham. A useful hour. I'm pleased. I'm pleased about that. Good news. Lots of thanks. Lots of useful stuff. So brilliant. Okay. Thanks, folks, and I'll see some of you tomorrow.